There was a hum in Sector 9, a quiet, mechanical purr that never ceased. It came from the walls, the floor, even the air, a layered orchestra control. Lena Virex sat in the center of it, a woman wrapped in shadow and restraint. Thick manacles clasped her wrists and ankles, humming faintly with pulse locks. The chair she was strapped to was bolted into the cold floor, and above her, a grid of surveillance drones buzzed lazily, their tiny red optics flickering with idle menace. The cell was stark. No cot, no sink, no belongings. Just white walls that pulsed with low light, and a reinforced table that rose from the floor in front of her like a monolith. No comfort here, only study, observation, containment. Lena leaned forward as far as the chains would allow, casting a sideways glance at the mirrored wall opposite her. She knew someone was behind it. They always were, taking notes, watching her breathe, measuring her silence. She smirked. The sound of heavy boots echoed down the hall. 2 guards by the rhythm. One was always enough for normal inmates, but she hadn't been normal in a long time. The door hissed open with a sterile breath, and the taller of the 2 guards, his nameplate reading Ross, stepped in with a practiced frown. "Virex," he said, voice flat. "You've got a visitor. Make it quick." Lena arched an eyebrow. A visitor? Her voice, low and smooth, carried a hint of surprise wrapped in amusement. "Now that's a rarity. Did I win a prize?" The other guard didn't smile. Lena stood slowly as they unlocked the restraints, still shackled at the ankles and wrists, but allowed to shuffle toward the table, now extruded into the center of the room. As she sat, the room seemed to sharpen around her, light focusing on the table as the door opened again. A woman entered. Civilian clothing, gray coat, pale slacks, no visible ID. Nondescript, clean, deliberate, but her eyes gave her away. Too alert, too direct. Not a friend, not a lawyer. "Lena Virex," the woman said, taking the seat across from her. Lena looked her over, unimpressed. "You look different in your file," she murmured. Softer. The woman offered a humorless smile and placed a small object on the table. A matte black capsule, no bigger than a finger. She slid it across with one practiced movement, never breaking eye contact. "You still have a way with words," the woman said. "But I'm not here for charm. It's time." Lena's fingers then moved toward the capsule. She tilted her head. "What's the occasion? A reunion? Or just another lie in a long list?" The woman leaned forward, voice lowering. "You said if I brought the code, you'd hold your end. Did you lie?" Lena's lips curved faintly. Not a smile, something older, more dangerous. "Oh no, I never lie. I just reshape truth." There was a silence between them, charged, ancient, as though they'd spoken in another time with different names. The visitor stood, her job done. The guards opened the door, and she exited without looking back. Lena waited a moment longer, then slowly reached out with her chained fingers and pulled the capsule close. Her eyes flicked to the mirrored wall again. "They're listening," she whispered, "but they don't understand." She let the capsule fall to the floor. With a calculated movement, she brought her boot down. Hard. A crack, then a hiss. The capsule shattered. From somewhere deep in the walls, a faint beep sounded. Then another, and another. Lena stood, smiling as the lights began to flicker. "All stories end eventually," she whispered, "but mine's just getting a rewrite." Far above, Sector 9's grid dimmed for the first time in 17 years. The riot alarms began to scream. The siren started like a whisper, low and uncertain, then grew into a howling wail that bounced off every steel surface of Sector 9. Red emergency strobes pulsed across the corridors, slicing the sterile white into shards of color and chaos. Inside the observation booth, the guards fumbled at their consoles. "Cell 19 breached," barked one of them, slapping at a touchpad. Power fluctuations across blocks C through F. "We're losing control of the grid." Guard Ross cursed under his breath, turning to glass just in time to see Lena Virex rise from her chair with deliberate calm. She moved like someone who had waited for this moment, not hours or days, but years. He slapped the calm containment override. Lock her down now. But it was already too late. Lena stood in the middle of the room, head tilted back slightly as she watched the flickering lights above. The capsule had done its job. Whatever was inside, nanite scramblers, viral code, EMP spores, had nested into the facility's backbone like rot in a tree. Systems weren't just shutting down. They were unraveling. Doors were hissing open down the corridor. Inmates screamed, some in rage, others in disbelief. The first riot in Sector 9 in over a decade had begun. Lena moved quickly. Her chains were still on, but she stepped into her shackles with the elegance of someone who had practiced in dreams. A snap of tension in her shoulders, and she bent her wrist inward, the thin lock on the manacle scraping against a small shard from the capsule, wedged just enough to spark a signal pulse. Click. The left cuff sprang open. The other followed seconds later. She didn't run. Not yet. She walked. Out in the corridor, chaos blossomed. Prisoners flooded into the central junction, some half-mad from isolation, others already locked in brutal scuffles with guards. The white jumpsuit bodies blurred in the crimson strobe, but they all stepped back when they saw her. Lena Virex was a legend here, not for what she'd done to earn her place, but for what she'd survived since arriving. Everyone had a story about her. How she'd turned a psychotic interrogator into a gibbering wreck. How she'd refused food for a month and emerged stronger. How her blood, whispered rumors said, wasn't entirely human anymore. She gave the crowd a single look, cold measuring. Then she turned and ran, not away from the breach, but deeper, toward the east wing, toward the turbine complex. Behind her, guards struggled to regain control. Some tried firing tranquilizer darts, but Lena moved unpredictably, darting between exposed comet scaffolds and steam venting pipes like a ghost. One dart caught her in the shoulder. She stumbled, paused, ripped it out, and kept moving. 2 floors up, in a surveillance center already losing camera feeds by the second, a voice crackled through a distorted comm. Target is on the move. Eastern corridor, approaching Sector 9T. She's faster than projected. Agent Hale didn't sit down. He never did. He watched the flickering feed, a half glimpse of figure disappearing into a blast tunnel. Long black hair, slender build, blood trailing from her arm, but still running, still calculating. He picked up the comm and activated the encrypted frequency. "This is Hale," he said. "Virex has activated the breach sequence. She's heading for the turbines. She won't make it." A pause, then static, then a reply. "She cannot reach open air. Do whatever it takes." Hale didn't need permission to hunt her. He'd been preparing for this moment for years. Meanwhile, Lena reached the turbine access hall, a vertical shaft 2 stories high, vibrating with energy even to the failing power grid. She dropped into the chamber using a service ladder, then cracked open an auxiliary maintenance panel. Fingers blurred. She bypassed a biometric scanner, rerouted the magnetic seal protocol, and triggered an old access override tied to a prison staff ID, one she'd memorized a lifetime ago. The turbine slowed, groaning as metal sheared against metal. A narrow gap opened in the containment wall, just enough for her body to slip through. Outside, wind howled like a starving animal. The storm had come early. The sky above Sector 9 boiled black, with storm clouds. Wind lashed across the high steel structures of the prison's outer wall, screaming through antennae and floodlights like a warning long overdue. Lightning danced along the horizon, jagged and hungry. Lena Virex stepped into the open air like someone tasting the world again for the first time. The rain hit her instantly, cold, hard, cleansing. It soaked her prison tunic and plastered her hair to her neck. But she didn't flinch. She stood on a narrow service catwalk running along the eastern turbine stacks, hundreds of feet above the jagged rock formations that separated the prison from the sea cliffs. Alarms wailed behind her, fainter now, swallowed by the wind. She climbed, hand over hand, up the maintenance ladder bolted into the turbine spine. Below her, the prison glowed with chaos. Cells open, fires spreading, drones flying erratic. Her code had done its job better than expected. One more level. She reached the turbine apex, a flat, circular platform ringed with industrial lights. Beyond it stretched a small maintenance bridge that led to the outer perimeter. If she could cross it, she could vanish into the eastern cliffs, into the storm, in the world they thought they'd buried from her. She didn't get the chance. A sharp click echoed through the rain. She turned. Agent Hale stood 10 meters away, gun steady, eyes locked on hers through the rain. His black coat flapped like a banner in the wind, face drawn and unreadable beneath the glow of the emergency beacons. He hadn't changed. Still precise. Still obsessed. Target spotted. He said into his calm eastern turbine, "I have her." Lena smirked, water dripping down her face. "Still tracking me after all these years?" she asked. "I'm touched." Hale stepped forward slowly, weapon still aimed at her heart. "You lost your rights to sympathy when you released the viral core in Berlin." "Berlin," she repeated, almost wistful. "That's the story they told you, isn't it?" He said nothing. She took a step toward him, not caring about the gun. "You were always a believer, Hale, always looking for the noble fight, the system's loyal soldier." "You murdered thousands," he said. "No," Lena said. "I evolved them." The wind caught her words, tore them into the storm. Hale's jaw tightened. "You injected the Virex sequence into unknowing civilians. They died screaming. They transcended," she said. "The virus was only the beginning. You never tried to understand it. You just wanted to contain it. You betrayed your own kind." "No," Lena said, stepping to the edge of the platform. "I outgrew them." Lightning lit the sky behind her, framing her like a prophet of ruin. Hale's grip on the weapon faltered for a fraction of a second, and in that moment, Lena turned her back to him. The chasm waited behind her, hundreds of feet of air and rock and rain. The fall should kill her, but she smiled. "Time," she said softly, "is a luxury for people who don't remember the past. I remember everything." Then she dove, backward, eyes wide open. The wind swallowed her scream, and she vanished into the storm. Hale ran to the edge. Looked down. Nothing but darkness. The chasm consumed her. And yet, he didn't believe it. The world became nothing but wind and velocity. Lena Virex plummeted like a phantom through the storm. The turbines above her vanished into shadow, replaced by the blur of steel scaffolding and lightning streaks. Air pressure crushed against her chest. Her prison tunic whipped around her body, flapping like torn wings. She didn't scream. There was no panic in her eyes, only calculation. She'd studied this drop for years. Every meter, every variable. She knew the wind shear, the rock face contours, the old weather patterns stored in Sector 9's archives. The chasm below wasn't a dead end. It was a doorway, and she had the key. 200 meters down, her body spun sideways as she neared the halfway point. Below her, jagged rock spires jutted like broken teeth from the canyon floor. But to the left, partially concealed by fog and overgrowth, a structure jutted from a wall, forgotten by most, but not by her. Substation Omega. It had once been a geothermal monitoring outpost, sealed off decades ago when the prison was expanded. But Lena had discovered it buried in the blueprints, accessed through corrupted archives and reconstructed in her memory over years of isolation. Her fingers found the ripcord at her waist, a thin, high-tension filament looped through a hidden groove in her jumpsuit lining. She pulled it. A flash of kinetic mesh burst from her back. A prototype arrestor wing designed from scavenged schematics, built piece by piece from smuggled materials and reprogrammed maintenance drones. The wing didn't stop her fall. It redirected it. She veered sharply toward the outpost, slamming into its outer shielding with bone-rattling force. Pain shot through her ribs, her shoulders screamed, but she held on, gripping the edge of a maintenance rail just outside the bulkhead. Blood dripped from her elbow, but she was alive. She pulled herself up, breath ragged, heart hammering. A flick of her wrist deployed a makeshift key, a reprogrammed chip from her old Nero collar. She pressed it to the access port. Sparks, grinding gears. The door groaned open. Inside, the air was stale with dust and heat. Faint emergency lights flickered to life. Amber faded. The walls were lined with ancient server racks and cracked touch panels. Rust clung to every bolt and seam. The hum of geothermal vents pulsed below her feet like the heartbeat of the planet. Lena staggered inside and sealed the door behind her. The storm outside became a muffled roar. Silence returned, broken only by her ragged breathing and the rhythmic clank of dripping water. She found a mirror, shattered, but still intact enough to reflect her face. She looked at herself, soaked, bloodied, alive, but more than that, free, for the first time in 10 years. She crossed the server bank and peeled back a corroded access plate. Inside, behind a false panel, she retrieved a small black case. Inside were a change of clothes, stitched from repurposed uniform fabric, along with tools, vials, a portable AI core, and a slim data drive shaped like a shard of obsidian. She inserted the drive into the console. The screen flickered, then stabilized. Accessing Virex protocol reconstruction mode. Lines of code scrolled past her eyes. Diagrams, strain maps, genome overlays, tactical projections, all of it waiting. She smiled, exhausted but resolute. The world had spent years caging her. Now it would remember why it was afraid. Above her, on the prison's upper decks, Agent Hale stood at the edge of the chasm. Rain still fell in sheets, but he remained unmoved, eyes locked on the void Lena had vanished into. Nothing on thermal, his aide said. No remains. No impact crater. If she fell, She didn't fall. Hale, cut in. She descended. His jaw clenched. She planned this. He turned away from the edge and raised his comlink. Alert command. Sector 9 breach is part of a wider operation. Virex is off the grid, but she's not gone. Prepare protocol Orpheus. A beat of static. Confirmed. Orpheus unlocked. What are your orders, Agent Hale? He paused. His eyes darkened. We hunt. The server room and substation, Omega pulsed with new life. Lena Virex knelt before the console like a priestess at a shrine, her fingers dancing across rusted keys and holographic controls. Code scrolled upward in a rapid cascade. Her code, interlacing synthetic sequences with reconstructed data harvested years ago from a Berlin breach. Lines of encrypted genome data, fractal and mutating, took form on the screen. They pulsed in violet and red, forming recursive spirals like blooming viruses caught mid-breath. She'd seen this pattern in her dreams. She had become it. The Virex strain was no longer a virus. It was a philosophy. It was evolution encoded, and now it was ready. She leaned back on the console, the faint glow bathing her bruised face. She'd wrapped her ribs in salvage bandage cloth, slipped into her repurposed field suit, black, streamlined, reinforced with mesh armor, and hidden syringes laced into her forearms. The obsidian shard, the data drive, was now fused to her left glove, pulsing with a heartbeat of its own. Her AI assistant, Nemia, booted up in her neural implant. Nemia online. System integrity, 72%. Stabilizing. Query. Deployment target? Lena stood. There's a vault buried beneath the station, she said aloud, voice low, deliberate. Level Theta. They used it to store experimental biotech before the prison took over. Vault status. Sealed. Containment locked under protocol. 7 blind. I know, Lena replied, but I wrote the override. She crossed the room to a floor panel, nearly invisible under years of dust and corrosion. With a hiss of effort, she pried it open. Below, a narrow shaft leading deeper into the earth. Dark, silent, forgotten, just like her. She descended. The vault had no lights. Only her biometric signal triggered the dormant systems. Flickers of cold blue LEDs lighting a narrow corridor carved directly into bedrock. She moved through it with purpose, past shattered observation pods and cryotanks rimed in dust. At the end of the corridor, a single door, a hexagonal seal, marked with a symbol most have forgotten, a stylized strand of DNA encased in a cube. The logo of Siren, the bioengineering project that had created her. She placed her palm on the reader. The door side open. Inside was a single containment pedestal, and floating above it, suspended in magnetic stasis, a vial, glowing purple, still alive, Lena stared at it, and for a moment, emotion cracked through her calm. Not fear, not even awe, but reverence. "Hello, beautiful," she whispered. "Did you miss me?" Meanwhile, Agent Hale stared at the holographic display inside the strike transport hovering just above the cliffs. The visual was grainy, warped by storm interference, but the trace signals were clear. Someone had accessed substation Omega. Old geothermal records were spiking. A heat bloom had registered less than an hour after the prison riot. It had to be her. Hale clenched his jaw. "Mobilize the Archangels," he said to his ops tech. "I want boots at that outpost within the hour." "Sir, if she's activated the strain." "I know what she's done." His voice cut like a blade. "She thinks she's rewriting the world." "I won't let her." Back below, Lena lifted the vial. The Virex core shimmered like liquid amethyst. Its movement inside the magnetic field was intentional. It responded to her presence. It recognized her. It was the last pure sample of the original virus. Before it was diluted, before governments tried to control it, before Siren branded it a weapon. This strain wasn't a biohazard. It was a key. Lena walked back to the console and slotted the vial into a containment pier. Immediately, the system flared to life. Diagnostic screens lit up, each showing new sequence branches opening. Nemia's voice returned in her mind. Core integration. Initiated. Virex genome stage. Sigma. Estimated deployment time. 4 hours 42 minutes and 18 seconds. She watched the countdown begin. The final phase was underway. They thought they'd buried her in a cell. But all they'd done was give her time. The Archangels came like shadows with wings of flame. 6 dropships broke from the storm cloud ceiling above Sector 9. Their hulls matte black and unmarked save for the silver glyph of the Coalition. Their engines whispered silence, stealth grade, until their boots hit the dirt. They were ghosts in human form. No one spoke as they fanned out across the chasm ridge, weapons primed, pulse rifles, thermal scramblers, EMP nets. These were not standard military issue. The Archangels were the government's response to one thing, and one thing only, post-human threats. And Lena Virex was first on their list. Agent Hale rode in the lead transport, watching the biometric overlays scroll across his wrist pad. Every step they took towards substation, Omega narrowed the range. Lena had made a mistake by activating the geothermal relay. It had powered the old system, yes, but it had also pinged satellites above. Now he had her coordinates down to the meter. His face remained unreadable as the squad's tactical lead approached. "Sir, perimeter is set. 1 entry point. 1 heat signature inside." Hale nodded. "Proceed." Below, inside the vault chamber, Lena heard the first clang echo down the shaft. They were here. She didn't panic. Instead, she removed her gloves and knelt beside the console with a vial pulsed, embedded now in a fusion core of adaptive alloy and neural weave. The countdown read, 2 hours, 34 minutes, and 11 seconds. Nemia's voice whispered in her ear. Multiple hostiles approaching. Engagement likelihood, 91.7%. Lena pulled open a small casing embedded in the wall, an old emergency locker, once used by scientists for containment breaches. Inside, 2 micro-drones, a spinal injector rig, and a folded armored bodysuit, her own design, crafted during her final year in captivity, using smuggled blueprints and synthetic mesh woven into her jumpsuit seams. She pulled the suit on like ritual. Each piece clicked into place with the finality of a lock. Not a soldier's uniform, a survivor's skin. Above, the Archangels dropped into the shaft one by one, magnetic boots finding purchase on the inner wall as they descended in silence. Their HUDs fed data to Hale in real time, thermals, movement, energy readings. But as the second-to-last soldier dropped in, something changed. The walls lit with strange glyphs, patterns like veins glowing faint blue. The steel groaned. The final soldier's descent line snapped halfway down. Screams. A flash. Then silence. What the hell just happened? Hale demanded. The squad leader's voice came through, shaken. Trapped. Auto-sculpted walls. "Sir, she's rigged this place with siren code. It's responding to her. Hale's breath caught. She was a security system now. Lena moved like wind to the lower corridors. The bodysuit amplified her speed, responding to muscle tension and neural input. She wasn't running from the Archangels. She was guiding them, drawing them deeper. Her drones flitted behind her, mapping walls and sending false signals. Echoes, decoys. The station's architecture was her weapon now. Every corner she turned, she rewrote the space behind her, venting steam, sealing doors, creating illusions of movement with refracted light. The first soldier turned a corner and met nothing but a wall of light and sound that fried his optic nerves. He collapsed without firing a shot. Alpha 3 is down. The comms blared in Hale's ear. Something scrambling perception. We can't trust what we're seeing. She's using siren reflex tech. Hale said grimly. Shut down visual feeds. Switch to bio-audio and infrared. She's everywhere, sir. No, she's where she wants to be. He looked at the live map. They were being herded, funneled. The team was being split. She's not escaping, he said aloud. She's preparing for war. Back in the vault, Lena reached a sealed inner chamber. This one wasn't from the original facility. She'd built it. The room was small, circular, and dark, lined with mirror panels. In its center was a chair and a harness rig that looked like it belonged in a machine cult. Lena sat down. She pulled the neural shunt from behind her ear and clicked it into the back of the rig. Nemia responded immediately. Neural link confirmed. Initiating final fusion. Genomic stabilization in 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 9 seconds. Her eyes fluttered shut as the system wrapped around her torso, injecting soft pulses of heat, energy, and nanite sequence into her bloodstream. She wasn't afraid. She was becoming. The final Archangel unit breached the outer vault seconds later. Gunfire erupted. Lena didn't move from the chair, but her silhouette shimmered, then split. 3 versions of her appeared in the space, circling the room like afterimages. The Archangels fired. Only one bullet struck, and Lena stood, real and unbroken, behind them. I gave you a chance, she whispered. Her hand snapped upward, 2 fingers extended like a blade. A ripple of force burst from her palm, and the Archangels fell. Above, Hale received the flatline alerts. His teeth ground together as the transport descended rapidly toward the vault level. He no longer cared about caution. It was her or the end. He drew his pulse cannon and stepped into the dark. The vault's inner corridor trembled as the last set of reinforced doors slid open. Agent Hale stepped through, boots crunching over fragments of shattered synthetic glass and broken drone shells. His weapon was raised, shoulders squared, every movement precise, military discipline honed over decades. His eyes scanned for anomalies, heat distortions, flickers of motion. And still, she moved unseen, until she chose to be seen. Lena Virex stood in the center of the chamber, bathed in violet-blue glow from the fusion core embedded behind her. Her bodysuit clung to her like armor grown from flesh, pulses of energy rippling faintly beneath the surface of her skin. Her hair hung loose now, damp with sweat. Her expression was still, not angry, not triumphant, resolute. "Hale," she said, her voice quiet but clear. He leveled the pulse cannon. "Don't speak." The silence stretched between them. In it lived years of betrayal. Berlin, Geneva, the labs beneath Lake Volta. The moment she defected from Siren, and the moment he chose to hunt her instead of save her. "I warned them about you," he said, "back when you were still human." Lena raised an eyebrow. "I'm still human." "No, you're something else now. That virus inside you, it rewrote your code, your brain. It's not evolution. It's a damn override." She took a step forward. He tightened his grip. "If it were an override," she said, "I wouldn't be standing here by choice." He hesitated. Just a flicker. "Enough." Lena seized it. "You knew what Siren was doing," she said, voice gaining heat. "You stood in the observation wing when they tested on children, on soldiers, on me. You volunteered," he snapped. "I volunteer to heal, not to be turned into a weapon." "You are a weapon." "I was..." She tilted her head. "Now I'm something they can't control. Hale fired. The pulse bolt ripped through the air. A flash of blue fire meant to vaporize the chest cavity of anything it struck. But Lena was already gone. She blurred sideways, like a ghost with muscle, and the wall behind her exploded in sparks. She appeared again behind him, a whisper away, fingers raised in defense. He turned, fired again. She ducked, twisted, closed the distance. They clashed, fist to fist, training to instinct. The fight was brutal, beautiful. Lena struck low, her suit reinforcing the blow, and Hale stumbled back, ribs cracked. He countered with a shoulder drive, pinning her against the vault wall. Sparks flew. She grimaced, then slipped around him like water, throwing him off balance. He landed hard. She loomed above him, breath shallow, energy pulsing at her temples. Her voice was ragged now, but sharp. You think this ends with my body in a bag? I'm not the end. I'm the beginning. He coughed blood, rising slowly. You don't know how far this goes, do you? He asked, eyes narrowing. Then tell me. Siren was just a test run. There are others like you. Versions. Hybrids. You're not the only broken one out there. She flinched. For a second, her certainty wavered. You're lying. I wish I was, he said. But they perfected the process. You're not a miracle, Lena. You're a template. She stepped back, trembling. In her mind, Nemia pulsed a warning. Fusion process stabilized. Core ready. Deploy or abort. Lena clenched her fists. I was never trying to be the only one, she said. I just wanted to choose what I became. She turned toward the console. Hale took aim again, but he hesitated. There was no backup left, no strike team, no satellite support. Just her, just him, and maybe the flicker of the girl she used to be, the one who once told him the human genome was a language that deserved to be rewritten with kindness. He lowered the gun. You can still stop this, he said. No, she keyed the final sequence. You don't know what will happen. Neither did they. That never stopped them. She looked at him one last time, eyes glowing. Goodbye, Hale. The vault detonated in light. Outside, the storm cracked open. From deep beneath the rock, a pulse rippled outward, silent to most, but alive with change. A signal, a call, a rewrite. The world didn't notice the pulse at first. No satellite, no alert, no news ticker flashed a warning. But deep in hidden bunkers and high-tech labs, scattered across the globe, something stirred. Geneva, Switzerland, Coalition Research Facility. Dr. Elisa Monroe sat frozen in front of a bank of monitors, her eyes locked on a shifting waveform pulsing across the screen. The signal was unlike anything recorded before, a complex weave of bioelectric patterns and quantum data streams, flowing like living code. Is this the virus? Her assistant whispered. Elisa shook her head. No, it's a call, a rewrite. She tapped furiously at her keyboard, running algorithm after algorithm. This can't be controlled. It's evolving faster than anything we've engineered. Behind her, the security feed showed an empty hallway, yet the sensors registered a subtle warmth, a flicker of motion too fast for the human eye. Elisa's fingers trembled. They said the Virex project was terminated. But what if it wasn't? Tokyo, Japan, underground resistance cell. In a cramped, dimly lit room plastered with maps and surveillance photos. Kaito adjusted his headset. Did you see the reports? He asked over comms. No official statement, replied Aya. But traffic on the darknet spiked last night. Whispers of the ghost returning. Kaito frowned. The ghost is a myth. Maybe. But Lena, she was real. He clenched his jaw. If she's sending that signal, we're all targets. Aya's voice was steady but cold. We need to be ready. New York City, Siren headquarters. Director Calloway stared at the incoming data feed on his screen. Live tracking from Sector 9. A red blip flickered, pulsing steadily. She's alive. His voice was low. Activate the protocol. Back in the storm-ravaged ruins of Sector 9, the silence was broken only by the distant roll of thunder. Somewhere, buried beneath rubble and shattered tech, Lena's consciousness drifted in the void between life and something else. Nemia's voice was a lifeline. Her eyes fluttered open to darkness. But this time, she saw beyond it. Visions of a new genome mapping themselves in fractal patterns across her retinas. A network expanding, connecting. She was no longer just one. She was many. And the world was waking up to her signal. The world was changing, whether governments wanted to admit it or not. In the shadowed corners of megacities, whispered voices began to rise. London, United Kingdom, the haven. Mira and Gwen adjusted the lens of her scanning device, watching streams of data pulse across her screen. Her workshop smelled of burnt circuits and ozone. Maps of major cities, satellite overlays, and encrypted messages littered the walls. She was a hacker by trade, but lately she'd become something else. A conduit. Another ping, she muttered, eyes narrowing. That same signature. Across the room, Jax leaned back, fingers steepled. People are waking up. Mira, you feel it too, right? That electric charge in the air. She nodded. This isn't just a signal. It's a call to arms. Mumbai, India, underground clinic. Dr. Arjun Patel scrubbed his hands, staring at the patient before him. A young woman with iridescent skin patterns glowing faintly beneath her sleeves. Symptoms are unlike anything I've seen, he said, but the viral markers are consistent with the siren experiments. The woman smiled faintly, eyes bright with something otherworldly. We're not sick, she said. We're becoming. Myra's workshop, London. A secure line lit up. Code red. The voice said urgently, Siren forces are mobilizing. Surveillance tightened. They want to find the source. Myra's jaw clenched. We won't let them win. Jack stood. We build the network. Spread the message. Protect the awakened. Meanwhile, far above, in a hidden outpost, Agent Hale watched the news feeds flicker. The coalition was mobilizing, but so was the resistance. His face was grim. She's not just a fugitive anymore, he said softly. She's a movement. Far beneath the surface, Lena's consciousness floated. Threads of data and genetic patterns swirled like stars in a cosmic dance. The signal she unleashed was no longer just hers. It belonged to all who would rise with her. Her voice echoed through the network. We are the next evolution. We are the future. And somewhere, deep in the noise, a new name began to surface. Virex. The bright fluorescent lights of Coalition headquarters buzzed with urgent activity. Screens displayed live maps, encrypted communications, and streaming footage from Sector 9 and other sites of interest. Director Calloway paced the command center floor, eyes fixed on a video feed showing dozens of operatives geared in black tactical armor, moving through urban streets. The hunt was no longer covert. It was open war. We cannot let this spread any further, Calloway stated firmly, voice carrying the weight of decades of battle against bioengineered threats. Behind him, General Ramirez, a seasoned strategist with icy determination, responded, We've authorized Protocol Black, mass detentions, enhanced surveillance, and targeted strikes against known resistance cells. Calloway nodded. Deploy the hunter squads and track Virex, dead or alive. Agent Hale received the order with grim acceptance. Hunter squads will be deployed across major cities within the hour, he said into his comms. Expect heavy resistance. His gaze flickered to a cracked photo taped to his console, a younger Lena, smiling, unaware of the war she was about to wage. We're chasing ghosts, he muttered, but ghosts can bleed. Resistance Safe House, London. Myra's fingers flew over her keyboard as alarms blared in the background. Calloway's forces are closing in, she said, voice steady despite the chaos. We need to move the awakened underground fast. Jax loaded weapons, eyes cold and focused. No more hiding, he said. It's time to fight. Meanwhile, in the shadows, a figure cloaked in darkness watched news reports on a handheld device. Virex is more than a threat, the figure murmured. She's a spark, and sparks ignite revolutions. Back in the depths of Sector 9, Lena's consciousness stirred anew, stronger, sharper. The core fusion was stable. The next phase was beginning. Hooked on true crime? Hit subscribe and stay tuned to Deadly Affairs.